I'm Nat Nasworth, Executive Director of American Values Coalition. Three things happened this weekend that I'd like to address. If this is your first time visiting American Values Coalition, welcome. We were founded 4 years ago to address the problems of right wing political extremism and misinformation, and to do so from a conservative perspective, as conservatives speaking to fellow conservatives about the problems within our own tent. We've heard from so many people who've experienced firsthand divisiveness in their families, friendships, and churches because their loved ones are consuming right wing extremist content. We empower people to navigate a wide range of right wing political extremism, from issues like vaccine misinformation to Christian nationalism to QAnon conspiracies to our current administration's abandonment of due process and the rule of law. I'm recording this on June 6, 2025. And last weekend, we witnessed a tragic example of what can happen when extremist rhetoric and ideology goes unchecked. Vance Boelter murdered and attempted to murder members of the Minnesota legislature and their spouses. Boelter appears to be an evangelical Christian who, according to his roommate, consumed a lot of polarizing content. We must reject all forms of political violence, regardless of the source. My message to my fellow conservatives and fellow evangelicals is this. While there's certainly extremist ideology and rhetoric coming from the political left, we desperately need to understand and address the corrupting influences coming from within our own tribe. This is why AVC exists, to grow a community of Americans empowered to lead with truth, reject extremism and misinformation, and defend democracy. While the news of these killings is devastating, there was also some hopeful news this weekend. We are seeing Americans in increasing numbers and from across the political spectrum stand up to the growing authoritarianism in our country. On Saturday, millions of people, 4 to 6 million, according to one estimate, showed up for the No Kings protest. People in large cities, small towns, red America, blue America, all coming together in defense of democracy and the rule of law. I participated in the one held at the Texas Capitol, and I left encouraged by what I saw there. Encouraged because it showed that despite our differences, we can all work together to defend, strengthen, and renew our commitment to democratic norms. One more thing happened on Saturday that I would like to address. It's not nearly as important as the first two things, but I believe it is important to clarify. Some folks on X raised some critical questions and accusations about AVC, specifically our pastoral equipping initiative, the J29 coalition. First, let me address some of the misinformation that was posted. There was a claim that J29 coalition is led by Russell Moore and David French. That's not true. Russell and David have been speakers at AVC and J29 events, and we recommend the After Party, a small group study they created with Curtis Chang, another friend of AVC, but they don't have a leadership role in J29 Coalition. J29 is led by me and the director of J29 Coalition, Pastor Caleb Campbell. Also, our previous relationship with Panorama Global was misrepresented. Panorama Global was our fiscal sponsor, not a donor. When we first started in 2021, there was a huge backlog of 501c3 applications at the IRS because of the pandemic. And when that happens, it's common practice to pass donations through a fiscal sponsor so that the donation will still be tax deductible. We're thankful to Panorama Global for their help, but they didn't donate anything to us. We paid them actually for that service. Plus, they didn't in any way direct how we ran our programming. Another false claim was that a previous employee, Dan Green, co founded AVC. Dan worked for us part time as our digital director. We appreciate the work that he did for us, but he's not a co founder. Now, let me address some of the criticisms which were raised. One criticism is that we work with and accept donations from people who are not politically conservative. On that, yes. Not only is it true, it's consistent with one of the core values that we promote, which is that we believe a well functioning democracy requires all of us to find common ground and to work together on areas where we find agreement. We're happy to work with people on issues of agreement, even if we don't agree on everything. And we're practicing what we preach in that regard. There is today a diverse coalition of folks from the left, right, and center who are all working together to protect our democracy. Working within this coalition does not require us to abandon our conservative principles in any way. Look, political movements often have diverse views. Take a look, for instance, at the movement to elect Donald Trump. It included atheists and evangelicals, Southern Baptists and charismatics, traditional Republicans and QAnon conspirators, black and brown people, along with white supremacists, both Jews and Holocaust deniers. They don't all agree on everything, but they're united in their common purpose of supporting President Trump. But let's step back for a moment and talk about the big picture here. I have liberal friends, MAGA friends, and fellow conservatives who are friends. There's no shame in that. It's fine. We can disagree and still be friends, just like my hat says. It's good, in fact, to have diverse friendships. This also is one of the American values that we hold. Civil conversations with people who have different views from you is a good thing. It's like exercise for your brain. We encourage cross ideological conversations, and that's what we seek to model at AVC. So, for instance, we were criticized for having Adam Taylor, president of Sojourners, on a webinar. The topic of the webinar is Christianity and patriotism, which raises many interesting issues to explore. We will have two speakers who've written books on the topic and give the topic a lot of thought, Richard Mao and Adam Taylor. My hope is that those who engage with the webinar, myself included, do have some disagreements with the presenters. I want us all, presenters and participants alike, to think more deeply about our own convictions. At AVC, good faith disagreement on important issues is a feature, not a bug. So I invite all of you to join us for this upcoming workshop on June 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Check out AmericanValues.org and sign up there. We'd love for you to join us and share your thoughts. We may agree, we may disagree, but we can help each other learn and grow in the process. Some are also claiming that J29 coalition exists to turn pastors into Democrats. That's not the case at all. J29 coalition exists to equip pastors with tools and practices to empower their congregation to engage in healthy political discipleship by providing resources, information, and a community of fellow pastors. Each pastor is invited to take whatever they find useful and apply it in wise and loving ways in their own context. J29 does not force or coerce pastors and what to teach or preach or how to vote. We trust that the Spirit of God will guide them as they discern the wisest and loving path forward in their own unique context. For a short introduction to what J29 Coalition is all about, here is its director, Pastor Caleb Campbell, to tell you more.
Hi, my name is Caleb Campbell, and I serve as a pastor of a Bible church in Phoenix, Arizona, where I've ministered since 2006. Over the last few years, I've witnessed a dramatic rise in toxic tribalism, political polarization, partisan extremism, not only in my community, but within the broader American church. And in 2023, I gathered with a group of pastors and theologians at Denver Seminary to pray and think and discern from the Spirit how we might work together to equip and empower evangelical pastors like me to shepherd our congregations toward a healthier, Jesus-centered political imagination. Now, out of that gathering, the J29 Coalition was born, a network of theologically conservative ministry leaders seeking to disciple the American evangelical church in kingdom-shaped politics. It's a program that digs into topics like how can we help cultivate a healthy political imagination in our congregation? How do we address politics without stoking division and divisiveness? How can we cultivate unity and diversity of thought within our congregations? How can we better care for people caught up in rage, anxiety, extremism? How can we host conversations about living out our faith in the public sphere without just parroting partisan propaganda? How do we lead our congregations through politicized conflict towards the way of Jesus? The J29 cohort runs over 3 months and addresses these topics and more. And we begin with a trip to the southern border to learn from churches and ministries serving both in the U.S. and Mexico. From there, we move into 8 online workshops led by pastors, theologians, and missiologists who offer guidance on cultivating a theologically rich, Jesus-centered political witness. The cohort concludes with a retreat in Chicago where we debrief, pray, and encourage each other and think through how we're going to put this into practice going forward. The goal of this program is not to tell people what to think or demand conformity to a political agenda. It's to empower pastors and congregations to discern your own convictions by the power of the Spirit of God. If you'd like to learn more about the program, our coaches, or to sign up for an upcoming cohort, visit J29coalition.com. And together we can cultivate a healthy, Jesus-centered political imagination.